It's all blue this morning. The Dubs have done their 4 in a row and did it at a bit of a canter. Anthony Moyles is here with us, who was also in Croker yesterday. How you doing?
I'm good, Ger.
The back page of the Times says it was boring. It wasn't that boring, was it?
No, I wouldn't say it was boring. It was actually quite exciting for the first kind of 25, 26 minutes, and then the last kind of 10 minutes was pretty exciting. There was a spell in the middle that was a bit kind of,
we can see this.
Yeah. But, you know, the more I think about it, you know, you kind of have to think that it was a sense of privilege to actually be there to kind of, you know, I think maybe you look back this in 10, 15 years time, hopefully, you'll say, wow, like, I mean, you were there to kind of see these players and the talent and the pool that is there.
Yeah.
Because regardless of all the other stuff, right, the outside stuff that people have to, they are just seriously good players.
The stuff that Cluxton mentioned in his speech.
Yeah,
the money and the population stuff. That was interesting, wasn't it? That was like,
it was interesting. Yeah,
he's been paying attention.
Yeah. I'd say, like, I mean, you know, is when you have greatness, I suppose, and you have people kind of saying like it's for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Like, the fact of the matter is, if you strip them down and you look at their ball skills, their calmness under pressure, their, you know, ability to bounce back, their determination, what they obviously do off the field, they're ticking all those boxes.
Yeah.
And again, no matter how much you put into, you know, you can talk about a lot of other aspects that would, okay, make up those different things as you go through your career, or as you go through a player, or even as you go through the system that is Dublin GAA.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to have that innate inside you. And a lot of those players, most of them have that. Like, I mean, they're practicing their left and right foot, all the different things. Like, they are just seriously talented people. They don't miss shots. You know, they get those crunch moments. They kill motive, or you know, they've anything that has happened, momentum killers, they get them. You know, if they want to switch the game, they get it. You know, they just have that ability just to hit you from all sides, and then they punish you. They punish mistakes like no other team.
They're also, this year was really interesting that several players would have had a spell of form that was a little bit below what we know they're capable of. So Conor Callahan, people were wondering about his difficult second season. Paul Mannion's form early in the season, in the championship season, wasn't amazing. And then yesterday, in key moments, like Mannion, I thought had a shout for man of the match. Conor Callahan was sensational. Yeah. Like, the turn for the goal is probably not going to get as much of play as the stuff that he did last year, but it was every bit as demoralising for the opposition. It's like there's a turn and there's a dummy solo.
Yeah.
For the second goal, and you're like, wow, that's sensational. Like,
and also his ability to get, you know, when he's in there, he's about to shoot himself, and at the last second he just pops the head up and he sees Scully gone, and he just gives him and the pass is even perfect. It's just there. It's like, just palm it in. You know, it's not behind him. You know, and that's in a split second. Like, he was going to shoot. You could see him probably thinking, okay, I'm away here. Just take a blast. And at the last second, he just gets the head up. Like, but your point is absolutely key. You watched them, and this is the thing about Tyrone, in that first 15, 16 minutes, certainly the first 5 or 7 minutes, where they still had plenty of ball, but they were taking pot shots from bad angles. And I was saying, oh, this is reminiscent of the semi-final last year, where they actually had a lot of ball, but they were taking crazy angle shots, you know, under pressure. They weren't looking for the extra pass. Most of Dublin's scores, and I think it was Eamon Donoghue who wrote in the Irish Times a couple of weeks ago that they actually haven't kicked a shot for goal outside the 45.
Yeah.
And they've kind of been in that D, you know, shooting from within the D. You look at it yesterday, they take the man on every single time, especially inside. O'Callaghan, Mannion, they take him on. They're so confident in their own speed, their own ball skills, their own, you know, skill level, that they'll take you on. And if that doesn't happen, okay, then they recycle it back out or whatever. But more often than not, they're shooting the percentage shot most times. Most of their scores are, it's a handy clip over the bar.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, wow, that was an amazing score.
Yeah.
It was just like, it's an inevitable score, nearly. You know?
Which is the complete opposite of the time that Donegal beat them, where in that first half alone, Connolly and Flynn kicked some of the greatest points you're ever going to see.
Yeah.
But it was unsustainable, obviously, and that's like, you know, you trace back that defeat and the evolution of this team and how they've changed as a group and what their philosophy is now versus that team, which was swashbuckling and brilliant to watch.
Yeah.
And hell for leather, go for it. And now they have changed the game. It's fair to say that if you're going to beat this team, you're not going to beat this team doing stuff that we've seen in the past. You're going to have to do something that is a little bit different.
You're going to have to bring that like we were just chatting there off air, you're going to have to bring that efficiency level, which is up at 75, 80%. You're going to have to try get that down closer to 50. Now, so by doing that, you're going to have to make them get out of that area where they're shooting from inside the 40. You're going to have to make them that they feel that they have to shoot from out there. That it's been going on so long and they're getting no joy from in there that they're taking chances that they otherwise would never have taken. And that's quite difficult because the Tyrone defence did well yesterday.
Yeah.
Like they actually played quite good. You know, if you mark it up, if you go individual, man on man, you'd say, geez, I didn't. Like, I mean, most of those fellas would come off and probably say, I didn't have a bad day. I didn't get skinned today.
Let's bring some of the post-match celebrations to you. We'll be heading over to the hotel in a little while. Stephen Doyle is out there, but last night he managed to catch up with Michael Darragh MacAuley. Have a look.
Michael, that's your 6th Celtic cross in the back pocket. How does it feel?
It feels good. Yeah. Every year it's a bit of a roller coaster. You don't know where the loop's going to come, but it kind of worked out in the end, I suppose, this year.
I know you want to start these games. You came on, got a point, which helped seal the win. Does it make up for not starting, or are you still a little bit kind of frustrated?
Yeah, look, it's all good, I suppose, this time of the year. I suppose you kind of feel, look, I was coming back from an injury last year and I didn't get playing in the final. I know how frustrating that is, and there's lads now in that position this year, and it's very frustrating for them. So everyone has their own kind of battles that they're kind of going through. Obviously I would have preferred to play more minutes, but like that's just the way it goes, yeah.
What's the competition like between yourself, Brian Fenton, James McCarthy, all the lads who might be playing midfield in the weeks leading up to the All-Ireland final?
Look, it's always huge. Lads are killing each other, of course they are. And if we ever lose that, then we're worth nothing to each other. So yeah, no, look, competition's crazy, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
What was Jim kind of telling the likes of yourself and Kevin McMahon when you're coming onto the pitch? Because I suppose it looked like you were home and hose in the closing minutes, then the penalty came, and then you're in a real dangerous situation then. Yeah,
you just have to be smart. You kind of need cool heads. We've kind of been through the ringer a few times, so it's not our first time being in the dungeons like that. So we're kind of well used to it. But yeah, look, you just can't go on trying to save the world when you come on. You just kind of go on and try and bring a bit of stability to the game and inject a bit of little something if it's needed. So kind of see how it goes. Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware there's doubters out there, Michael, who have questioned Dublin's All-Ireland final wins because you've only won them maybe by a point. It was won by 3 points. Do you feel you've answered those critics now, maybe the last critics you've had to answer, or is that something you've even taken into consideration? Do you use it as motivation?
Not in the slightest. What do you win by today?
Just 6 points today.
Oh, was it? Yeah, very good. Yeah, look, you just want to get the W at the end of the day, whatever, by 1, 2, 3, 6, whatever. It's all good.
How are you feeling now about going into another year? Like Jim was in there talking about watching the club championship over the next few months. Like, are you as determined as ever now to put in good performance for Ballyboden and impress Jim ahead of next year?
Give us a rest, Steve, will you? Jesus Christ. No, I'm not thinking of any of that crack. I'm going to go have the crack tonight. That's what I'm going to do.
So what are you thinking about that?
Well, I'm just going to go and party. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a bit of crack and we're going to see my friends, have a social life again for a little while because we've been locked down. We've been machines for the last while. We're trying to get to this point, and you have to be machines, and that's how we go about it. But now we're going to let the hair down, have a bit of crack.
Give us a quick word about Brian Howard and Owen Merchant. First ever All-Ireland final starts.
Well, yeah, look, Brian Howard had an outrageous year. Someone needs to sort out that dummy. Look, I don't know what else can be said about him. He's a brilliant player, brilliant year, yeah, great attitude. And Merchant stepped up to the plate so late in the year and did a job against Tyrone twice. So they showed a bit of faith in him and he backed them on it. So it was great for him.
That moment finally just in the dressing room when you all got in there together after picking up the cup was a nice moment.
It's always a nice moment, yeah. So we always play. I started a little transition from letting the secrets out. They always play Van Morrison days like this, so it has to be done. Followed by a bit of Bill Withers with you like this? Is that alright for you?
Absolutely, Michael.
Bill Withers, Lovely Day, and then Lean on Me. So there's a bit of tradition going on now, so it's all good.
How's the singing voice?
Mine, crap. But everyone else's, it's alright.
It'd be good to be in a position to have a tradition in an All-Ireland winning dressing room, wouldn't it? This is our set playlist, and it won't be changing. Yeah. That's great stuff. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'll tell you what's coming up now. They're going to bring you through the sports pages, which obviously are dominated by the Dubs. There is one other very interesting story around the Ireland football team, which we'll get to in a moment as well. We'll talk in more detail about Jim Gavin's Dubs and where they are and how inevitable 5 in a row might actually be at this point, or maybe are we looking at a 7 in a row here? I don't know. Maybe they need to lift their ambition up to set a mark that's never going to be matched again. Alan Quinlan's going to join us around about 8:45 because the rugby was back, and then we'll go back to the Champions Hotel and get some more post-match analysis and reaction. Time now for the papers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
It's funny, like we always talk about how that great Kilkenny team, the best matches they ever got were in training, and like Michael Darragh MacAuley was obviously enjoying the post-match stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was I didn't enjoy being a sub. And you can see that. And you can see, like, even in the pre-match photographs, there's a bunch of people who don't look particularly happy about the fact that they're not in the match day 26.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of people who aren't happy about the fact they're not starting. And, like, that pressure within that group will continue to go on. Does everybody walk away who wanted to walk away at the start of the year, or do they stick around now because it's 5 in a row and you're going to be part of the 5 in a row team?
I think purely because of the fact that they are so good and that they are going for, you know, the 5 in a row, you'd probably say, right, I'm going to get myself in a position where at least someone's going to make up the decision for me, not myself.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's probably where you get to, because I think you'd feel pretty sick, you know, if you did say, oh no, I just don't have it in me.
Yeah.
And then you see and they go get 5 in a row and stuff like that. Like, but I watched closely now. I watched Paddy Andrews closely. I watched Bernard closely yesterday. I watched, you know, just after the game. And as I think Fenton and Kilkenny grabbed Sam Maguire and they went running towards the hill, and the boys kind of looked like as if they were going to go into the dressing room, and Gavin kind of corralled them up and said, listen, go join your teammates type of thing. Now, you know, but it is hard. It has to, like, everyone will tell you, you know, everyone says, no, you're part of the team, you're just not.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, on that particular moment, it takes a lot of strong will to kind of say, yeah, I really want to get into this, because there's the disappointment, there's the questions hanging over you, there's all those different things, and all of a sudden you come from, well, I was actually at the centre of that, to now I'm actually standing on the outside looking in. And although you've got the jersey and you've got the medal and you've all that stuff,
It's not the same.
It's not the same, you know.
If I was talking to them, if I was part of the management setup, you would be saying that there's a chance for you to get back in. Who knows what's going to happen next year?
Yeah.
But also that in years to come, your role in this 5 in a row will never be diminished. Like, you were the driving force behind getting us there in the first place, set the standards, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And by not being around when the 5 in a row happens and not having those photographs, you're diminishing yourself a little bit. Like, you're missing out on something that you have absolutely helped to set up. So stick around, lads. Come on.
You have to go. The way you have to probably look at it is what you say. You have to kind of. You're going to listen. This is now beyond you as a person. You know. So when you were 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and you were learning off the likes of, say, Kieran Whelan or David Henry or Jason Sherlock, they were carrying the baton that you're carrying now. So those guys were going through a very lean period with no All-Irelands.
Yeah.
And then they handed this over to you and they schooled you and everything that they needed to school you. Now, things were honed in, but it's now your turn to do that to the likes of Howard and Scully and these fellas. Like, I mean, you know, you hear Michael Darragh MacAuley talking about the training sessions, and, you know, those in-house games have to be, like, unless you're at that level where you're actually killing each other, you know, you're absolutely killing each other. I wouldn't mind, like, I mean, I'm sure there was fisticuffs, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that goes on, because that's what needs to go on. I remember the best training sessions we had before, you know, All-Irelands and semi-finals and different stuff, going back into the whatever from 2000 on with me was like, I mean, fellas would be just, there'd be fights happening everywhere, you know, like, I mean, and Boylan and whoever else, Coyler, would be just letting it go.
Yeah.
Now, okay, if it got a bit too much out of hand, but you have to have that intensity. You have to have that. You have my jersey, and I am doing my level best to take that off you.
Yeah.
So even for that, because there is a lot of onus on the likes of Bernard and Paddy Andrews and O'Gara and Paul Flynn and these fellas to say, no, I need to pass that baton on again and ensure that maybe the next 4 or 5 who come into the panel, because they will come in this year, you know, like, I mean, they do have the
Plenty more in reserve.
Correct, plenty more in reserve. Like, I mean, who would have thought at the start of the year that you'd be looking at Merchant, Scully and Howard? You know, there's 3 kind of bolts, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Howard at least had the ringing endorsement from Dermot Connolly in the off-season going, this guy's pretty special, you just keep an eye on him. But the other two, like, and even Scully starting yesterday, you're like, I know he's done well in a couple of games, and then he does really well, and you're like, okay, I mean, that half-forward line was so young, and, like, that started the game, and Conor Callaghan as well. Like, they're a really young team. They completely, the churn from the first All-Ireland in this series of 4 to yesterday is unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of young guys actually in the programme. Like I was looking through, a lot of young guys in, that kind of from 24 to kind of 26, 27. Numbers wise on the panel.
Right. Yeah.
Very young, like 20, 21 years of age.
And they're just coming to peaks now as well. Yeah. So like I still don't think we've seen the very best of Kieran Kilkenny. I think that there's still room for him to get even better. So
the man beside him as well. Fenton. Ridiculous.
Hasn't lost a championship game.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous. He was getting some special treatment now yesterday by Myler. And to be fair, they put a guy who's a bit smaller than him, but he literally did not leave him alone. Like he was patting at him, he was shouldering him, he was getting into his face constantly, off the ball, on the ball, everything. And actually, it was quite interesting that when he went off, Fenton kicked his 2 scores, which were just too listen, give me the ball and just tap it over type thing. So
strolling through.
Oh,
it's amazing.
Jesus, yeah.
And he does it at pace that is completely understated as well. Dick Clerkin has one of the headlines of the day, but Tyrone start with intent but revert to type as the snore to 4 predictably plays out. That's your Irish Independent this morning. The Examiner, it's the same aspect, same picture nearly, is for John Small, 2 red cards in a row. Yeah,
but that's, that's his edge. And that's what he's in there for.
No one cared.
No.
I didn't see the second booking, but...
it was actually potentially a goal chance. Right. So it was a ball coming and he kind of went in. He wasn't going to get it, so he just made sure that he got the man. He said, listen, I'm going to take a yellow here. I'm going to take a free rather than something else happening.
Even the subs weren't as effective as they have been in previous years. But Cormac Costello, his first touch was electric.
Yeah.
Dribble and pass 3 or 4 players and it ends up
batting off the back of the butt of the post.
Yeah, I mean that was almost one of the great, that might be the greatest substitution moment that we've seen. 5 alive, so 5-5-5. It's all this becomes now
the next thing.
Yeah, and that is going to be very difficult to deal with because every single conversation that we have with this team in their downtime now over the next 3 or 4 months is going to be the same conversation that MD was like, no, I'm not thinking about any of that kind of stuff now, but it's going to be really
already
boring.
Started.
Yeah.
Sure. There was text coming in straight away after yesterday saying the drive for 5 type thing, and it's straight away it started. But the funny thing is, I watched the Miko documentary last week, and I know it was a repeat, but he said, whatever it was where they lost a couple in between, they could have potentially had 9 in a row.
Yeah.
And you kind of go,
that's the same as Dubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
So, what rhymes with 9?
Shine. Okay, so here is the other story that we actually just need to talk about for a couple of minutes. Ireland crisis. This is Philip Quinn. He kind of was writing this yesterday in the Mail on Sunday as well, but obviously with the All-Ireland football final, it probably didn't get as much play as it will today. Ireland manager Martin O'Neill is expected to confirm today that Harry Arter has asked not to be considered for international selection for the foreseeable future. He hasn't retired, but just doesn't want to be selected at the moment. He was named obviously in the squad, played yesterday the full 90 minutes for Cardiff, not injured. The FAI declined to comment on reports he'd withdrawn and said O'Neill will reveal his revised squad today. Arter and Roy Keane were involved in a verbal altercation in Dublin prior to the friendly with France in May. Declan Rice may also have been the subject of some comments from Roy Keane, is the other part of this story. So there's full details here. Philip Quinn starting with an Oscar Wilde quote. I mean, it's great stuff here. Sportsmail understands that Keane made a put-down remark to Arter about his fitness in the team hotel before Ireland played France in the summer, which led to the altercation spoken of by O'Neill recently. It's believed that Rice tried to act as a peacemaker in the squabble and that Keane subsequently passed comment to him. While it's still uncertain, it's believed that this is at the root of the decisions by both players in requesting not to be considered for selection for the forthcoming games. So actually, maybe Declan Rice is not having doubts about playing for Ireland. He's just having doubts about playing for Roy Keane.
Yeah. I'm kind of, I'm a bit confused on it. I'm not confused by it, but I'm a bit kind of, I'd say Keane is an abrasive character. Like, I mean, he's also, I'd say, a fella who just likes to poke you if you're new to something. You know, he'll test you. You know, he'll test you on the field. He'll test you off the pitch. You know, one of these guys where he's saying something and he's kind of going, I'm messing with you. But he'd never actually say that. He's just seeing how's your reaction. I'd say he's a guy that is constantly just testing your mettle, you know, and seeing have you got whatever it is that he wants you to have. Because I've kind of seen him around, you know, of whatever I watch of international football, you see, you know, different things, and you, like the players, most of the players seem to have a decent rapport with him.
Yeah.
You know, and you see him on the training ground and he's laughing and joking with fellas. So you kind of go, okay, maybe he has a softer side, or I'd say he's the type of fella that, you know, if you're his type of a player or you've put it in, well then he'll put the arm around you and he'll back you all the way. But I'd say if you are anyway on the edge, he'll completely block you out.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't surprise me. But at the same time, is it a bit of an overreaction? Is it a bit kind of throwing the toys, dummy out with the toys? You know, I don't know. Like, I mean,
yes,
Arthur.
Yes and yes on this, right? There's so that version of the story is that basically Rice is a peacemaker. There's another version of the story where he's slagging off Rice about his family leaving Cork, and it's like, you know, your family should have stayed in Cork, you know. Then like,
Right. Yeah.
And I said another version of the story, and so that, and Harry Arthur happens to be in the room, and then the Arthur altercation happens. Now, Martin O'Neill has confirmed the Arthur altercation has happened, and the Mail have now printed the fact that that's why Harry Arthur is not being in the squad, is not sticking in the squad, and now they've also printed the fact that there was some words were spoken with Rice. Yeah. The order of that's important. If it was just a joking thing, then it's an overreaction, and actually you can see how this story gets back to the agent, and the agent goes, boom, here's our £1 million to sign the Nike boot deal with England. Like, you know, so a bunch of stuff happens. Roy Keane's involved, the story gets magnified.
Of course.
Or this is what happens when you have Roy Keane involved. Like, there was another row with John Walters, which was also has been referenced by O'Neill, and you know, I mean, John Walters and Roy Keane have history going all the way back to the time when Walters was first at Ipswich, and now John Walters is the only fit striker we have in the squad. Yeah. Do you really want, like, is this a good atmosphere?
No, is the answer. But that's what I suppose you get with Keane. So you have to have, if you're going to have the yin, you better have the yang. You better have O'Neill better be the peacemaker, or someone's got to be in there saying, listen, you know, it's only Roy blowing off some steam. He'll come around, because you have to have that. So I think if there is, I'd say there's an awful lot of repair work being done in the background here.
You'd hope so, because we just lost.
Because it's not like we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players, especially, like, I mean, did you say Arthur is the only?
Well, he's one of our few, well, he's certainly one of our only fit central midfielder playing in the Premier League at the moment.
Yeah, so, you know, it's not like we're awash. So definitely...
you're not awash.
No. You need to start repairing some bridges here, I would think.
So there's a wraparound from the Herald, obviously. Fantastic 4, Dublin 217, Tyrone 114. The spread was exactly 6 points.
Yeah, nailed on. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it should really have been 9 that, you know, they didn't really give away the penalty in the end. So the Carabao Cup. Gold Cup Hope presenting Percy in flying form. So already we're starting to count down to St. Patrick's Day in the racing world. The tabloids this morning, D4, I get it now. I saw one in the crowd, just said, what's that? Okay, I get it now. I mean, it's stupid, but I get it.
There we go.
And formidable dubs. There's posters in many of the newspapers today as well. Like, Cormac Costello can get better, can become someone who, like, has a Paul Mannion style influence on games.
It's funny, you know, you spoke there about the substitutes, and I'd have to go back, and because most of the games are pretty much nearly over, so it is hard. I watched McAuley, I watched Costello, and I watched McMahon, you know, closely yesterday when they came on, and their MO is literally get the ball and stretch the opposition as hard and fast as you can. They don't come in to sit in and kind of play a defensive role. Now, of course, the two guys are forward, but McAuley doesn't do that either. He's literally on the front foot all the time, and it's like, listen, we'll sit back here and we'll protect. You have to be the man who actually drives forward and goes at players. So that was the thing, and it's really, Costello got a point, McMahon got a point, And I think McMahon did, or McAuley got one that he fisted over. But they could have, if they really wanted to, and they actually passed the ball around. Like, Tyrone were absolutely out on their feet at that stage. Like, they were hanging on, some of the defenders were hanging on by an absolute whisker. They were just there to be taken.
There was one, McMahon tried to kick a point, but it ended up being kept in play by Tyrone, and then suddenly they're coming down the field again. You kind of felt like there was just a bit more surgical stuff going on for Dublin in previous seasons in stoppage time. But you
do, and again, it's hard, and it is hard. Like, if you're listen, we don't know obviously we're not privy to what's going on behind at those games, but if you're seen as a finisher and you're seen as someone, I don't think necessarily Gavin. He has tried McMahon plenty of times as a starter. I think he has tried Costello a couple of times as well. Do they have? Because I tell you what the Mannion thing is, and this is something that people mightn't necessarily pick up. But Mannion made 2 serious soirees back into his own defence. One in particular where should have, for all intents and purposes, could have been an easy goal for Tyrone. Where there was a Tyrone shot. It was half blocked. Went out to kind of left underneath the Hogan stand. I can't remember who the Tyrone man was coming in, but Mannion had tracked him all the way from his own spot as corner forward and managed to get in front of him and basically prevent a goal. Unbelievable tracking from a corner forward.
Moments after he'd won the penalty.
Correct.
And he'd also been laid out. He got laid out he was getting treatment before he got up to take the penalty, and
then took it. And absolutely, the penalty was unstoppable as well. But they're the small little things, those small little margins that all of a sudden that he doesn't do that. I don't know, I was speaking to you as well about the Donegal game where there was one of those classic kickouts from Donegal, ball was patted down to McHugh, and for all intents and purposes you're like, oh, I've seen this before, this is going to end up in the back of the net, because it was like 3 players coming against the defence with 3 guys inside. There was an overlap, and I think it was Jonny Cooper and McCarthy. I've never seen guys sprint back as fast, maybe even McCaffrey as well. But it was just the defending, and that is something that is missed. You don't get the cherries on top without having all the other stuff that they have, and they have plenty of that. And that is what you have to match first and foremost. And to be fair, Tyrone, for plenty of it yesterday, did.
Jack McCaffrey we were talking about this a couple of weeks back, has the chance to be the greatest footballer of all time if he continues on this path. Like, he's still only 24, 25. He's already man of the match, already a footballer of the year. This is a year where he's just coming back off a cruciate injury, so he will get even better as time goes on. He's starting to add kick passing to his repertoire. Like, it's pace that we've never seen the likes of. So we were at Lower Hogan yesterday, and sometimes they're actually the best seats because you can feel the bangs with like only 10 rows back from the sideline, and you can feel the bangs, but you can also feel the pace. If that makes sense. When you're up high, it's like, wow, he moves much faster than everybody else. But like, when you're kind of on a level with them, you understand exactly what that pace means. It's just much easier to understand actual spatial terms, and it is pace that makes no sense. That he has control of a football and his faculties and is looking up, and as opposed to like just straight line speed where it's incredible.
Just running. But he has every single time yesterday he probed, which is fantastic. Like, he gets the ball, you're there, and he just goes, I can take you. And he just goes, and if he managed to get the hand on him, he's so quick, he just comes back. But more often than not, he takes you, and all of a sudden he pulls 2 guys in towards him. Like, there was one actually where he kicked a pretty tame enough shot at the end. I think he was caught between 2 minds. He was thinking, will I go for goal? Will I pop it over the bar? Remember that one in the first half? I think he kicked it into the goalkeeper's hands. But
I thought he was having a cheeky goal.
Before that, but he laced through. He looked like a man possessed. He looked like a guy who had been, right, I'm out here to prove a point, because he sprinted in at half time. Like, he went like the fastest I've ever seen anyone sprint in from the far side of the Cusack stand. He passed everyone out and went down the tunnel like a shot. And I was just thinking to myself, and you could see the passion of himself and his father after the game.
They were enjoying it.
He wanted to prove a point yesterday.
Because obviously he doesn't have all the medals because he took that year off. So, okay, so the Irish news for you here. Can have a look at that one. That is Don't Stop Believing urges Hart. I mean, Tyrone come out of it with enough credit to think that they could probably improve decision making, all that kind of stuff, and that actually they might get a little bit better into the future. Bore in a row is the other interesting headline. Scintillating Dublin, far too strong for Tyrone and everyone else. So
I think Tyrone will kick themselves a little bit. I think they will. You know, there was that period of 15, 20 minutes. It's the classic Dublin thing. You know, when I remember playing, and we used to play Dublin, and it was that swashbuckling Dublin, right?
Yeah.
It was literally just do your best to hang on to the coattails for the first 10, 15 minutes, because they always started fast.
Yeah.
And I remember we used to be 6, 7 points down, but then they'd hit a lull, and you'd end up coming back into the game, which inevitably did happen. But what they'll be just disappointed with is that they had that great period for 15, 20 minutes in the first 15, the first 15, 20 minutes.
Wides.
They kicked some bad wides and just some bad decision making, you know.
A quick look at the English back pages today. Mourinho's United front manager dedicates victory to Woodward after playing protest. So all is good at Manchester United for at least the international break after a 2-0 win yesterday. And England send India spinning to defeat. So Telegraph for you next. That's another England cricket story, and then a quick montage of the other newspapers. So Jose's rash bash revival will take root, and then bosses go nuts. So we'll get to the football a little bit later. Here though, let's Anthony's talking about some of those Dublin teams in the past. Stan Connell put his finger on some of the regrets that his team have.
Which of the years was it that hurt you the most?
Oh, we'd 0-2, I think we had a great chance against Armagh when Armagh went on to win it, and in 0-5 against Tyrone.
You were kind of outsiders in 05 though, weren't you?
Yeah.
02 was a 50-50 game.
Yes.
That was the one that, I mean, you lose by a point, and there's the Ray Cosgrove free off the post.
Hit the post. And Dave, you'll know it as well, and what the media do, because the media was based in Dublin, even our team, they just drove it to the roof. They were making us favourites for games, and it was totally unjustified, because we were coming from a base where we weren't good enough to beat the best teams, but we discovered a lot of new players. Anna Brogan came in, Barry Cal came in, you had Casey and these guys, and all of a sudden we had a new team. And
this is a Dublin team that hasn't won a Leinster title in 7 years.
Yes.
They've been made favourites for every game.
Yeah, the Leinster title was like an All-Ireland for us. It was full house, there was glitz, there was glamour, there was razzmatazz going on with it, so we just couldn't get over the line against these lads or Armagh. But I think that one really at half time, and we'll get on to Mickey Hart in a while, but we played
the game isn't over at half time.
Yeah, the game, that's it. We were set ahead.
You were maybe 5 or 6
ahead. I remember Desi in the change room saying, look, expect anything to happen here, and we talk about the brains of Mickey Hart in a while. I think there was 9 changes at half time between personnel and moves, so there was lads rocking out expecting. I remember talking to Collie Morris, and it was either me or Collie starting. Collie was marking Philip Jordan was nowhere near him in the second half.
It's interesting, at half time in that game, like we were more or less told just cut loose, whatever you have to do. I went to half forward. Big Kieran I was struggling with him in the air, and we brought Joe McMahon, who was used so many times to put out a fire, and he went on to Kieran and kind of roughed him up a little bit, which suited Joe. But I went to half forward and sort of released me a little bit, and we just cut loose that day.
There you go. You can get more of that good stuff on all of our social channels. But Darren is here, like the cat that got the cream.
It's great, isn't it?
How are you, Darren?
I'm not bored of it yet.
No,
not yet. Still enjoying it.
Are you resentful of the snore and bore, snore for 4 and bore for 4?
I spent most of yesterday complaining on Twitter about Dublin not getting enough credit and arguing with people who wouldn't give them credit. And then I realised I don't really care, because we still won the All-Ireland, so it doesn't make a difference anymore. So I gave up.
You do care though, you do.
I just,
that didn't
I stopped caring for 5 seconds. The same kind of people would complain about Messi being really good at football. I just don't understand the double standards of greatness is not acceptable when it's Dublin. But when it's almost anyone else,
know,
it's acceptable.
Michael Schumacher ruined Formula 1 by being too good for a long period of time. It became a bit like, oh God, Schumacher's going to win. Is he going to win by a lap or 3 laps?
But history is kind to him now. Contemporary commentary of Dublin isn't great, but history will probably remember them as one of the greatest ever.
Contemporary is mostly really good. Like, we're talking about which of these players will go down as all-time greats, which of these players will be considered as the greatest player in their position ever. Like, that's the conversation we're having about these teams, as opposed to, and their skill level and their ability off both feet and their passing and how they've changed the game. I mean, I think it's pretty.
And I think you kind of, to make it but to actually make a good story about it is actually say, well, how, and it's a compliment to them to try to see, well, how can someone else measure up to try and beat them? Like, how can you set up to beat them? And that's why probably lots of the commentaries around the opposition, because it's just that they are so, it's not a question of, well, who will win today? Yeah. It's like, can they actually break these guys down?
Yeah.
Like, who has the formula to beat them? So that's actually in itself a compliment of, well, they're that good that someone has to bring something different to beat them.
The funny thing is, I just felt like Tyrone didn't bring a lot. They gave away 2 really cheap goals. They made Dublin look like superstars. And I thought that first 20 minutes from Dublin, we highlighted it against Galway, it was a shaky start. And against a better team, they could have been rattled. Like the goals Tyrone gave away were so soft. Dublin, their kickouts, for the Tyrone kickouts, Dublin initially were marking men. And then when they went zonal for the kickouts, that's when they capitalised on the poor one and created a goal out of very, very little. But it was a very, very cheap goal to give away from a Tyrone point of view. And after that, it just kind of knocked the sails out of them. The wind was gone.
It was interesting for that first 15, 20 minutes. Dublin didn't look like they'd sparked into gear. And then the goal sparked everybody into gear. Like at that point, Howard was playing well. Kilkenny was showing for the ball, but obviously there's only so much you can do when he's so far advanced. And McCaffrey was playing brilliantly. Like from the get-go, McCaffrey was playing brilliantly. But even some of their better players were making mistakes or turning into traffic, and it looked somehow like Tyrone had a strategy of allowing Dublin almost to win the first ball and then getting the second guy and swarming the second guy.
That's what it was.
The kickouts.
Yeah.
Like
they squeezed them, because we were chatting about it yesterday at the game. They squeezed them from in front. So man would come, they'd turn, but then they'd also squeeze you from behind. So they were trapping guys, so they were trying to get, and then if you hand pass the ball or kick past the ball to the next guy, a lot of the focus was going on that recipient. So it was like the second ball was really being marked. And they turned them over quite a number of occasions. The one that really killed Tyrone, though, was the second goal, because if you watch it back, there's a terrible push in the back on Jonny Cooper right under the Hogan stand. I think Myler pushes in the back, when actually there's 2 Tyrone lads hunting him down. He has his back to the play. All they had to do is let him pick it up and just hold him, and they probably would have won the free. Another good turnover to get. They push him in the back, he gets it, and he just pops it into O'Callaghan, and O'Callaghan goes in, and it was an absolute killer goal. It was really, really soft, because actually I think the rest of the Tyrone fellas had said, okay, we're going to get this, and they were nearly setting up to kind of move out. They were already starting to think, okay, we're going to win the free here. We'll trap them in. And that was a bad moment, And it's just like that, though, where it's gone.
I think the other thing they have is that anybody can play anywhere in that forward line, really. Like O'Callaghan can play full forward, he can play centre forward, he can do whatever you need him to do. And again, that means that you can have Kilkenny be influential as far back as his own half-back line if you need him to, because all of a sudden you've got that firepower up front. So 7 in a row, I think 7 in a row is realistic here. And if I was them, I would be changing the narrative rather than this 5 in a row non-stop that we're all going to be listening to for the next 12 months.
The drive for 5.
Well,
let's just get bold on this. Darren, you could start it.
I'll take 5. 5 will be happy enough with. That's where we'll start with our roundup anyway. There won't be an almond milked in South Dublin or a coddle cooked in North Dublin for a week. Sam Maguire will be spending winter in the capital. The Smithfield Plaza, the venue here in the city for the homecoming this evening from 6:30. Dublin's own Merkin, one of the surprise stars of this season. The defender went from statsman in last year's All-Ireland final. He was sitting up in the stands helping compile the stats, to a starter this year. On Sunday, he won a Celtic cross, and he revealed how he had to keep that starting spot secret from even his family.
This time last year I was up in a stats box helping the stats guys out, not even a part of the 26, so it's a great feeling to be out on the pitch helping the guys and pushing the guys along to win another one.
When did you find out you were playing?
Friday night I got the nod from Jim, and then it's just keeping it quiet and resting up until Sunday. Once Sunday comes, it's building towards the game then.
Did you not tell anyone?
I told my dad and told him he wasn't allowed to tell anyone, didn't tell anyone else, no one else in the family knew, so I kept them guessing as well. That's a good feeling. I suppose when you've put in all the work we've put in throughout the year, it's been 50 weeks of hard work pretty much since the last game. We've been going non-stop since the start of January, so training the wet, the cold, the snow. So you can imagine that at the end of all that effort, there's a bit of emotion spilling out and a bit of joy, and we'll celebrate this one.
It's a little bit of history for Dublin as well. That's the first time that they've actually won the 4 in a row, joining that great Wexford and Kerry team. They also made minor history, Kerry too, celebrating becoming the first team to be crowned All-Ireland minor football champions for a 5th successive year. They came from 7 points down at one stage to defeat Galway by 21 points to 114. Well, the pressure on the Manchester United manager Jose Mourinho was eased somewhat with a 2-0 win over Burnley in the Premier League yesterday. Romelu Lukaku scored twice as United returned to winning ways at Turf Moor. The win comes after a turbulent week for the Red Devils, which included a 3-0 home defeat to Spurs and a loss at the hands of Brighton earlier on. Mourinho feels he was never under any pressure and always had the backing of the fans.
I think we start winning this match because of Old Trafford after Spurs. You lose at home, the fans react bad, the team loses confidence, the week is not a good week, the team feels the pressure, and the next match is a even more difficult match. We lost at home, the fans were amazing to the team understood that the direction was good, the result was bad, but the direction was good. The week was not a sad week, it was a very good week of work. Important points. Sorry?
You weren't just with the team, they were with
Yeah, but with me is not important. Important is the team. I always say that. The manager is not important, the team is important, the manager doesn't play.
Now, Luis Suarez has some fears for the football celebration. He believes VAR might kill it because the adrenaline and desire to celebrate will leave the player. Suarez and Messi scored twice in La Liga in an 8-2 win for Barcelona last night. Routine enough stuff. In its first VAR season being trialled in La Liga, he said post-match, when you have doubts with the VAR, you lose your adrenaline and desire to celebrate. It's a big blow to your happiness.
Good stuff, Darren. We'll let you go and celebrate. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ger.
I'm surprised you came in today, to be honest. I thought that maybe, you'd be off for the week.
I wasn't feeling too great yesterday after a Saturday in Stradbally in a field.
Okay, right.
Actually had a pretty tame All-Ireland final day experience.
All right, well, I'm sure there's many more to come. Right, here is Jonny Cooper speaking with Stephen Doyle in the aftermath of the game. Have a look.
Jonny Cooper, that's a 5th All-Ireland title for you, 5th medal. How does it feel?
Hasn't sunk in yet, probably, I don't think. It's very special times, it's hard to probably describe. Really good group of people there, and it's just a pleasure to play with them, and I guess it's just trying to take it in our stride and enjoy the moments for what they are, because maybe they won't be here in the future, so it's just nice and special.
It's the biggest margin you've won an All-Ireland final by. I suppose there were some maybe people doubting Dublin because they'd never won a Dublin or won an All-Ireland title by a huge margin, a final by a huge margin. Is that something that played on the players' minds going into this one?
No, I don't think so. I think we were prepared. We had a lot of respect for our opposition, and we prepared in great detail for that. They brought a lot of enthusiasm and they got a great start, and we probably didn't perform particularly at the start of the game, and we kind of had to claw a bit of that lead that they had back. But again, testament to the guys there. There's some crucial scores, some crucial defending, and some very big shifts put in by some of the guys in particular. And I think the finishers just played their part and drove it home for us because we were under the cosh towards the end.
What would you put the slow start down to?
I think they probably brought it to us, and we probably just, I wouldn't say weren't prepared, but they probably caught us out in a couple of balls. Defensively playing inside, they got a couple of scores, and look, that they're a great opposition, they're a great opponent, and they're going to get that if you give them time and space. So I guess a combination of them making good runs inside, and us just weren't able to cover them, I guess. As I said, the preparation that went into it, training was going very well and everything else. So they probably just caught us for a couple of minutes, first 10 in particular, and then before we got the grips with it, and then we managed to claw some of that lead back through some crucial goals and the penalty and everything else.
Was there a concern at the end then when Tyrone got that penalty that they closed the gap and they had time then to really push under pressure?
I wouldn't say a concern, but we've probably been in those moments and situations before in previous big games and games in general. So I guess we probably just stuck to what we were trying to do, and some of the outlet balls, the guys coming on, Cormac, Michael Darragh, Kevin Mack and others who were just in those positions, and Darren Daly got him kick out. So just a combination of things. I guess to maybe see at home, but no real concern, but obviously something when we do look back on that tape to probably go after and probably prepare or do a little bit better on, hopefully next time.
I know you don't want to give the opposition motivation before the game, but can you tell us now whether the achievement of 4 in a row and matching the likes of Kerry and the great Wexford team from the early 1900s, was it a motivating factor?
Not for me, no. Didn't really even resonate with me, to be honest. I stayed away from most of that, or all of it nearly, and didn't even come into my psyche, to be honest. I doubt it came into the other players' psyches. It wasn't talked about as a team, certainly. So look, we're just trying to knock them down as they come. I don't know if we're counting as they come or anything like that. I think we're just trying to go after as best we can, and we got a decent performance today. But as I say, when we look back, and we probably do a bit better, and there's many more guys and people who didn't get game time today that hopefully will be pushing on in a couple of months' time and just go after it again.
How did Owen Murchan and Brian Howard, in their first championship years and playing their first ever final starting, how did they do so well? Like, what is it that makes them such good players to be able to perform so coolly in such a pressure situation like this?
Well, no different. I guess the panel in general, they put in a lot of work to their own game, their analysis on opposition, their technical side of their own game, their physical training that we all need, nutrition, everything else. So they're just ticking the boxes, I guess, in that regard. And you've probably seen the trust that Jim has put in them, in particular. Some of them people that had good seasons this year. And look, they've been thereabouts on underage successes and teams as well. So it's not as if they came completely from left field. They're behind the scenes, I guess, in many respects, putting in the work before Jim gave them that trust. And look, they just picked up the ball and ran with it. And that's the way it's always been with Jim. If you get a jersey, you just you're trying to hold on to it as best you can because there's somebody really, really close to you if you don't. So probably that's what the guys done, and all credit to them. They deserve every bit of plaudits that they get.
Would you like another one after this year?
Yeah, really would. But obviously enjoy the next couple of weeks, go back to the club, get a bit of downtime, and I don't know, whenever those moments and things come around that we analyse the game, knowing Jim and his setup, that'll be at some point fairly soon. So it's just an honour and a pleasure to play in the jersey, I guess. And many years we're all coming to games and watching, and now having the privilege and the honour to be out there and playing and getting these opportunities, it's just fantastic. And it's something I get for years, but at the moment we're just, I guess, going after it as best we can and enjoying the moments of what they are.
It's Jonny Cooper yesterday speaking in the aftermath of the game. Stephen's mad to get them all ready for the drive for 5. He's insisting that they don't have any downtime.
No, absolutely. Stephen's really driving it himself.
We're going to head over to him now, and we can actually. Stephen, how you doing? Good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. Morning, Anthony.
That was a pretty harsh line of questioning, I thought, to the two lads you managed to buttonhole last night. So, just how prepared are you for this 5 in a row?
Listen, we don't rest up too long in Dublin, Ger. We're always thinking about the next trophy.
Yeah. So, are any of them awake yet so far? Have you seen any of them? How was the rest of last night? What are you hearing from that?
Well, I just got down here, spoke to a couple of my journalistic colleagues. Apparently, one of the players who shall remain unnamed turned up maybe a little bit the worse for wear, and was dying to get on the telly. But the lads wouldn't allow him, so I think he's gone off. I think he's gone off to the Boar's Head now. But I've just been speaking to Seamus McCormick, who's the handler of the footballers. So Jim Gavin is here, Philly McMahon are here. I'm going to try and get them over to have a chat with you guys back in studio, hopefully in the next 10 or 15 minutes. I think Jim's going to do a live piece with somebody from TV there. But it's quiet enough. It generally is quiet enough. You'll see maybe. Generally, in past years, maybe around 9 o'clock, you'll start seeing a few people coming down, and not all the players go too mental the night before. You'll always have a few players who have had a good sleep and have been well behaved.
Yeah. You've obviously been around this team over the course of the last decade or so. How intense have these celebrations been? There was a little kind of sense of almost like relief this year as opposed to the sheer outpouring of joy and emotion after the all-time classic matches that we've had against Mayo in recent seasons, for example.
Yeah, I think there just seems to be a feeling of the players really. There was a lot of questions put to them in the build-up to this about are they kind of taking these medals and all these trophies for granted, and there just seems to be a feeling, even with the younger fellas, that they really are treasuring these moments, that they're not letting them slip by too quickly, and that they aren't taking them for granted. The likes of Brian Fenton and that, you'll hear them talking about how special these days are, celebrating with the team and being with this team. They all just seem to love being in each other's company. It's not just it's not just this machine that likes to hoover up Sam Maguire cups or whatever the case may be, but they actually just love being with each other. And I think that's one of the key things I kind of felt yesterday talking to some of the players after the game.
Yeah, and MDMA obviously was talking about the set list they have now to celebrate All Ireland wins in the dressing room.
Yeah, he's a big music fan, Michael. I've met him at a few gigs and stuff over the years, so at least somebody's got some good music taste in that dressing room, because I don't think that's always been the way.
Stephen, we'll let you go. Thanks a million. We'll talk to you in a little while. It's Stephen Doyle down in the Gibson Hotel, keeping an eye out, and hopefully we'll get to talk to some of the players and maybe Jim Gavin as well.
Yeah. Listen, there won't be too many lads up at 8:30. That's guaranteed. They'll be doing well at 9:30 too.
We've got some Instagram photographs. This is new. This is definitely something that in recent years we've actually got a bit of access to. I mean, back in the day, the change room was actually free for all. Anybody could go in there. There's some great footage in Reeling in the years of post All-Ireland final dressing rooms, and then obviously they were on lockdown and nobody got in except maybe some photographers. So there's Bernard Brogan, 11,000 likes. It's not bad. Special day with special people. That's the twins. Who's this? Keane O'Sullivan.
Paul Mannion. Yeah.
My boy.
Teammates, of course. Submates.
Here is the inside the change room. Keane O'Sullivan, this is the warm-up area, obviously. And that looks like the Gibson there. Oh no, that's the players' lounge, isn't it?
Yeah.
So at Croke Park. Jack McCaffrey with the sports file photograph. Let's go back to that one. Sorry, I was going to read that when you get stuck.
With the least favourite member of the Mannion family. McCaffrey is actually, he's very funny. You know?
You get stuck, your least favourite, but have to pretend that it's all good. He is funny, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he is. You know what, he has actually a great outlook on it, you know, like, I mean, he just doesn't take it too serious. He's brilliant.
Kieran Kilkenny, Mannion. There you go, 1,200 likes on that one. Danny the Coronas. A big Dublin football fan, and actually a flatmate, or used to be a flatmate of Ken McManaman. So, best days of our lives. Dino. I'd say Dino must have been feeling, I've missed a couple of frees here very early on. He said that afterwards, that they kind of just sent a bit of a shiver through the team.
Yeah.
And it did. You can see, like, we were talking about this afterwards last night, that, like, all week long you're listening to, you're going to hammer them, you're going to hammer them, you're going to hammer them. Jeez, it's great that you're going to have to collect it. And yesterday they became the equal of all of the other great teams that have ever played Gaelic football.
Yeah.
At some point, some of that begins to play into your head, that you're thinking, we're up against history here as well as the opposition, and I just have to try and focus on the next ball. But Jesus, that's hard.
It is hard, but like, the amazing thing was, I suppose maybe neutrals and maybe people are just kind of clinging on to moments of, you know, kind of vulnerability, I suppose. And when he missed those 2 frees, you could actually hear it in the crowd.
Yeah.
And even probably Dublin supporters are like, oh, you know, is this going to be the kind of the way it's going to go today?
Yeah.
You know, so normally a pretty accurate and unflappable fella has, and his one, I think it was his second one, which was underneath the Hogan stand, pretty tricky enough shot off for a right-footed player, you know, coming across the goal, but he hit it really badly. And you could kind of say, but to be honest, they never panicked, Ger. Like, I never got the sense, even at 5-1, and it could have gone 6-1, it should have gone 6-1, Tyrone had a bad wide. They never looked, Cluxton certainly never looked panicked.
No.
The main worry I felt was they were getting their kickouts out way too easy, you know. And I know Tyrone were, if you watch it, they were dropping Gavin back pretty quickly. Like, he wasn't squeezing up, so he was directly going back into that hole. Now, they were only playing really one in between their full back line. I think it's something that when you look back on it, Hart will probably say we probably didn't need to do it. Yes, it might have prevented a goal or two, I don't know. But, like, I mean, I don't know if Kavanagh even has the agility anymore, because, you know, when a fella gets by, someone like O'Callaghan gets by, like, Kavanagh was lucky probably not
to get black card.
Yeah, because there was once or twice where he kind of just last-ditch tackle, pulled down a couple of Dublin fellas.
It almost looked like, you're too good a player to be black carding. This is going to be a black mark against me for the rest of my life.
It was a bit of that, yeah. Like, I mean, he was lucky enough, you know, because it was definitely nearly a last man back type tackling, you know. Like, if they got past him, it was definitely goal time. But I think we spoke about, and I spoke about the thing about being brave, and I think Tyrone needed to be, and I think that bravery needed to start. Like, I think you said earlier on, I don't know how many kickouts, but I think they had 94% completion on their own kickouts.
Two went awry from 31, so I think it was 29 successful.
Like, that's you need to squeeze at both ends, and I can understand. But if you look at Dublin's success in that period where they got to 2-2, came from massive pressure on Morgan's kickouts, massive pressure. Like, I mean, they had the bank of 4 right on their own full forward line. Then they had the next bank of 4, and then they had 2. So they were squeezing them up. And obviously from the press box, you get a great view of where the space is.
Yeah,
and there was none.
Yeah,
like he was literally, you felt sorry for him, because he was kind of saying, and his only space was mostly out to his right on the sideline. So he obviously has to move himself over. So obviously, as he's doing that motion, even
everybody realises where it's going.
Everyone's already starting to direct across.
That. Yeah. To look back on the season, it's not a vintage season of Gaelic football. There were some really good games. There were some massive moments in it. Does the Super 8 as a concept work? I mean, obviously, it's a 3-year experiment, so more than likely we're going to sit through the full 3 years of it before we decide. Like, it doesn't really. It's like it's a halfway house. Everybody is going to be a halfway house to something better. But
I think it's a halfway house. I think it is a halfway house, and it's a stepping stone to say, well, look, I think it helps the bigger teams, the bigger panels. I think if they're going to do it, they have to take the games out of Croke Park to make it somewhat, of an entertainment factor when you go down to the provincial grounds. That's vital.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Croke Park is just not a nice place to be with 30,000, 40,000 people in it. It's terrible. Be it as a player or a supporter. And if you want to try to get this, look, I mean, it's funny, the place was packed obviously yesterday, and like where we were sitting, like, I mean, the press box gets full around you, which is the only time in the year it actually does.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of kids sitting beside Dublin, and like, I mean, they were pretty bored, really, and I was thinking back to games when I was a kid, going into, be it hurling games or whatever. You go to Thurles, you go to Munster finals, and literally you're just on the edge of your seat and you're watching and you kind of go, not that you feel sorry for these, I suppose, Dublin kids, or be it any supporter, because it has become, football unfortunately has become this methodical, I mean, you want to call it Borefest, but I definitely think you need to remove those games out of Croke Park. You need to get that sense of kind of madness and that parochialism back into it, and of occasion, which Croke Park doesn't lend itself to that if there's not 70,000 people in it.
You would hope that the whole Newbridge or Nowhere, like in the cold light of day, the analysis of that is a learning experience as opposed to something to feel upset about from the hierarchy at Croke Park and the organisers who actually go, what we learned there is you can have amazing occasions that are sellouts, and if people can't get to them, that's okay. Yeah. It's okay for people not to be able to go to matches because we've sold every ticket in this small ground.
Yes.
It'd be great if we could always accommodate every single person. Like, the ideal scenario somebody said was, you're a sellout -1 because then everybody who wanted a ticket got one. But like, that's not how life works.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And we have so many of these tight little grounds around the country that these games could be sensational. And you could see too that when Tyrone came out of their defensive shell, that actually there's loads of really good footballers there.
Yeah.
And they could be a team that plays progressive, interesting football that has a little bit of Dublin's attention to detail and methodology of playing. Like, the game isn't ruined. The game is actually very savable. If you
I think the game is massively savable. Like, I mean, if you look at the last 7 or 8 or 9 minutes of the game yesterday, right, the crowd got really engaged. Why? Because Tyrone went back to a very traditional style of play. So they put Gavin in full forward and they actually started to kick the ball in, but it caused a bit of panic and it caused a bit of mayhem and it caused a bit of kind of like, where's this going? Yeah. Kind of thing. And really, Jim Gavin won't care whether he's entertaining or not, right? He's winning All-Ireland. Absolutely. And neither would Mickey Hart care whether he's entertaining. Jim McGuinness didn't care whether he was entertaining.
No, that's not their job.
Or not. It's not their job. But, Croke Park is a very different pitch to Newbridge or to Tullamore or to Navan or to Casement Park or to Clonus or wherever. Yeah. It is a massively big pitch, and it brings everything else involved in it. So nearly, and if you're going in as trying to strategize for yourself for playing Dublin, the game in Omagh was a very different game to the game in Croke Park because you just essentially have more space. So you're deciding, okay, how do I cut out the space? How do I make sure that I protect myself a bit more? All those different things. And you know what? If Dublin are going to get caught, can they get caught where they go to another ground in the Super 8s? Potentially, but to get that kind of sense of where you're getting a bit of a festival of it, and you're getting, I think teams certainly, if I was setting up, if the two of us were setting out to take over an intercounty team for next year, you're saying to yourself, listen, we have to rewrite the copybook on this. We have to do like a la McGuinness and probably plenty of other teams over the years where we have to decide there is another way where we can, let's not go down okay, you can use the basketball parlance to a certain degree, but let's try something totally different because Gavin has that ticked. Now obviously we need the talent. And the pool of talent is the big thing. And Dublin are the most talented team out there.
Yeah.
They just are.
Now, the other thing that they've done is obviously they've perfected their skill levels, and the little clips that you see from training, it's like there's always 1,000 footballs out there. It's just an interesting kind of little snippet into that world, because obviously so much of it is kept secret. I want to play you this. It's Mickey Hart speaking with Moira Trassa Gaelic after defeat in yesterday's All-Ireland football final.
Two things I felt affected the game, and people may say, what does she know, she's only watching it, but one was that penalty, obviously, that came from a Tyrone mistake back in the defence and came all the way down. And though the other thing as well was the amount of wides, the decision making. I mean, a lot of the times you get the ball down to where you could to score, and then it went awry.
Yeah. Well, decision making is always critical at this level, and we've been talking about that all year. We'd like to get the best player in the best position to have a shot. Taking shots from acute angles or under pressure is not something we recommend. But in the heat of this battle, we can't expect a lot of the players to do everything all of the time the way you'd like them to. They're young players; they have to learn. I think they hope they'll learn a lot from today.
You got to the top of the mountain this year when lots of people didn't expect you to, and it's been a really hard few years for you. On a day like today, I can only imagine that it must take an emotional toll as well.
Well, it does. I mean, if you're involved in this game, it is your life, and but of course, as we know, it's your life to a certain extent. There's more important things in life, and that's not to diminish how much this means to the people of Tyrone or people who follow Gaelic games. And we were doing our level best to make this a great day for them. But when all's said and done, you have to realise that we don't write the script. We just try our best to play it, and we'll leave that in God's hands how it's going to go.
What did you say to your players at the final whistle when you were talking to them?
I just said you sort of, as the old saying goes, you died in your boots. They didn't give up. They gave it everything. There was some wonderful turnovers, some work rate when people were obviously very tired, and they give it their all. And I said that I'm so proud of people that can do that.
Yeah, they did get very tired when you were watching it, you could see, but they, like you said, they did die with their boots on. They kept going to the point where Tyrone fans around the 70th minute had hope again.
Oh, absolutely. The game came to a new life that seemed to be dripping away from the game, and when the 70 minutes come up and there was 7 extra, then people believed that anything was possible, and so it was.
And finally, before I let you go, even though you've lost, you still look really positive as an individual.
Well, that's it. I suppose that's what life's like now. When you get to my age and have experienced all the things I've done, you put everything in context, and in the context of the greater things of life, it's disappointing. It's a sad day for football fans, but life goes on.
Mickey Hart in conversation with Moira Trassa Gaelic after the All-Ireland football final yesterday. Let's cross back over to the Gibson Hotel and say good morning to Philly McMahon. Philly, how you doing?
I'm not too bad.
How does this one differ from previous years? What's your sense of winning 4 in a row? Because technically 4 in a row means you're at least as good as every other team that's ever played Gaelic football, and right there with the 3 best.
It's the same as the last one. I have to get up the next morning and do the media because I'm the only sober one. But look, it's I don't really compare them, and I don't really look at the 3 or the 4. It's, for me, we had an opportunity to put smiles on Dublin people's faces, and we done it yesterday.
Obviously, for you, Philly, I know this has been a very difficult year. Yesterday, you were wearing a T-shirt. You were talking about your dad in the aftermath of this as well. So, on a personal level, it's been a very difficult year to finish it with an All-Ireland medal. What does that mean for you?
The last 2 years have been tough. My dad got diagnosed with cancer about a year and a half ago, and obviously he passed away this year. So it's great to have sport as a distraction when you have a family member that's terminally ill, and the support I've got from the Dublin community, certainly my Dublin teammates and the management team, has been a great distraction for me. So to get the gift last year of my dad seeing me win an All-Ireland, and that was his last time we'd see it. For me to do that this year and be a small part of it for other people was huge for me, and we're very grateful to be able to do that, put the jersey on, and to be able to put joy into people's faces, I suppose.
Yeah, like it sounds like it was a release and escape for you as opposed to anything else, and I don't know how you managed to maintain your form in the midst of all that.
Yeah, look, as I said, it was a distraction for me, and when my dad was alive, it was certainly something that I had in my head. That was something that was helping him fight on, and to get to the matches and stuff like that, you know. So it can be a distraction in a bad way, but once you use it the right way, it can actually, you know, motivate you. So for me, I'm just absolutely delighted that I was able to achieve what I achieved this year with what was happened.
Yeah, just to kind of broaden that out then, the ability that you've had this year to keep your place in the face of fairly intense competition. You know, we've seen some of the greatest footballers ever to play for Dublin struggle to keep their places this year in the face of the competition from the younger lads coming through. What are those training battles like at the moment, and how close do you feel people breathing down your neck trying to take that jersey off you?
Yeah, we kind of say every year the competition is probably what drives us forward and ultimately gives us that All-Ireland title. And again, every year there's new lads coming in, and they're adding so much energy to the group, and that proved again this year with the lads that you look at the bench this year, and there's probably 2 or 3 other forwards there that could have been brought on. Unfortunately, it was 3 defenders and a midfielder and 2 forwards. So, you know, GM does a great job, and the management do a great job at making sure that every year they add energy to the squad through the players, and look at the lads buy into a really positive and strong culture. So that's what keeps the competition alive.
Yeah, because we were just comparing the team that won the first of this 4 in a row, and even the one that won the first All-Ireland under Pat Gilroy. It's almost a completely different team. Like, there's obviously a core of key individuals involved, but like the turnover is happening at a real pace. Like the half-forward line yesterday, very young lads. You know, I think of Howard coming into the team, who's now a nailed-on starter, it seems, who at the start of the year kind of was somebody people were just talking about. And then you look at Owen Merchant and think he's literally come from nowhere, it seems, to suddenly be somebody who, when there's a job to be done, he knows exactly what to do. And it seems like Jim Gavin trusts him as well. So it's cutthroat at the moment, the competition for places.
Yeah, and look, you have to ask yourself, where are these lads learning from? You know, they're learning from quality players that have great attitude. So how these lads add energy is they do their apprentice, I suppose, and they learn from the players in front of them. Them 3 lads that played in the half-forward line, the 3 lads they've learned from are top quality players and have huge accolades. So that's happening all the time, and there's no egos. It's, you know, there's a couple of lads there that didn't get game time yesterday, and they would have understood what their role was. They obviously would be disappointed they didn't get game time, and there's lads there that weren't even on the squad that would be very disappointed. But it's, look, at this team will never be the same. Every year it's going to change, and that's what keeps the competition lively. That, you know what, who knows health, who knows injuries, who knows that management might be a part of their selection next year, and you just have to grab what you have right now in the present.
Tell us a little bit about your own game yesterday. Like, what was the level of freedom you have to go forward? Because again, we kind of see that you were one of those defenders who, when there was an opportunity to drive forward, you were piling forward from very early on.
Yeah, in fairness to Tyrone, they brought out certainly the best in us in terms of our preparation. We respected them massively. For me, I was marking a corner forward that was dropping back a little bit, so that gave me a bit of space to run into. They went man to man in the full forward line and full half forward line, so that meant that we could dictate where we were trying to bring them, and that meant that we could kind of put up the middle challenge of the pitch. So that's just what happens when you play that style of football, that kind of defensive style of football where lads are dropping into pockets to decrease their space. So got up a good bit in the first half, and then obviously when we took the lead, my main role is to make sure that I support the lads in the back line and do my job defensively and win my individual battles. So and after that, it's just a bit of a bonus. So were you surprised actually then that they have 6 forwards pretty much for, it seemed like, most of the first half, because there was no sense that Keane O'Sullivan was actually sweeping even before he went off? No, myself, Keane and Jonny were marking, so we didn't really have the sweeper as much. It was more, did they have 6 up? They generally had 2 up, and they had probably 1 hovering around the the centre forward position. So depending on the transitions and what way they played, when they were transitioning up the pitch, they tried to get the 6 men up. But they probably were getting more of the scores from out the pitch and running at us than they were inside and turning and going at us. So that was a big learning, I suppose, from the game, just initially thinking of it.
And was there a significant difference between the test that they gave you this time and what happened up in Omagh?
Very similar. You know, they came strong at the end. If one thing we said we were going to do in this game was to have a better performance in an All-Ireland final, we probably haven't done that in the last three before yesterday. So we were still a bit patchy, to be honest. And towards the end of the game, we gave them a bit of an opening where they could get back into the game, which is not good enough. But look, this is what we like to do for All-Ireland finals, so make sure it's not that easy and give it a bit of spectacle.
Yeah,
we're going to say that we let them score, but we don't really sure.
I was going to say, you were doing your best giving away the penalty there, just saying, 7 minutes of stoppage time, yeah, I'll give you a penalty and get this thing going there.
Yeah, that's me. We made Colin Cavan. I gave him a little dig out and they got a penalty. Stephen just wanted to see how Stephen was for the penalty.
Keeping everybody on their toes, exactly, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Well, listen, good stuff. Philly, go off and enjoy the day. Thanks a million for talking to us.
Thanks very much.
It's Philly McMahon live from the Gibson Hotel there this morning, having the crack. How are you?
He doesn't have a drink, so he looks good and fresh anyway.
Yeah.
Great achievement from him.
Yeah, it's amazing. 6 All-Ireland medals.
Yeah. And a tough year, because I think, I can't remember, it was the semi-final or one of the games he didn't start. I think it was quite soon after his father passed away.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's they've had a lot of sorrow in that family, so it is a massive achievement to be able to keep your focus when that's going on, in the situation where it is, where the competition is, obviously within the squad, because he is a leader for them. He's a talisman, and he is a player that they look to. So it's if he was removed out of that, they would have been a lesser team, to be fair, going
There's
into
serious mental strength throughout the whole side, I think, to just have that belief. And I was talking about it on breakfast. I don't know a huge amount about the tactics and the way they play, but to have that kind of ambition, desire, drive to keep repeating it. Yeah. You can have the skill and the talent in any sport, but to have that kind of, you felt that belief even when they went out, 4 points behind, and they just have this kind of belief and real drive for success, and that's what impresses me most about them,
Well, it's not that long ago. Like, you remember, Ger, where people were saying, Donegal 1-1, Dublin 1-1, and people were saying, in the modern era, no one will ever win 2 in a row, because they were saying it's just so hard to get yourself back up to that level. And now, you're looking at 5.
Yeah, and more, I think. There's a good chance this team could. Kerry really haven't won 5 in a row, and the minors are kind of our best hope. But then you keep forgetting that the minors are actually under 17. It's going to be much longer before that team comes through. Anyway, Alan, good morning to you. How you doing?
Ger.
Welcome. The rugby season is back. Winter is coming. You're here.
Just here, yeah. It wasn't. It was a good start. It was nearly a clean sweep. Connacht threw it away. I think they were in Galway on Saturday against Glasgow Warriors, who had all their internationals and they're a very strong side, but Connacht were 9 points up with 20 minutes remaining, and Glasgow down to 14 men, and they lost the game in the end.
Yeah.
So that was probably a concern from them. They played really good rugby on Saturday. It was sun was shining, and Andy Friend, new coach, has spoken about giving them a bit of a license to play, and they looked very, very exciting to watch at times, but porous in defence, unfortunately, and just lost it in the end to a good Glasgow side. Yeah,
Connacht could be, they've got a chance to be one of the stories of the season, because we forget that this is a team who was league-winning calibre, who were doing sensational things, and then last year obviously had a coach who just didn't fit.
There's a lot of negativity there last year, and a lot of frustration, and the players played within themselves a little bit, and I think players and management were probably at fault. They didn't click together. He seems like a very upbeat fella, Andy Friend, and positive and energetic, and they look very, very good in their skill sets. Their execution was good, but just porous in defence. Now, that can be a little bit critical. Glasgow are a very strong side, and they're the full deck on Saturday. So it was disappointing in the end for him. Craig Ronaldson at a late shot at goal hit the post to win it. But when you're conceding up in the 20s, it's hard to win games in rugby anyway, high-scoring games like that. But a lot of positives, but the frailties in defence. Leinster Friday night, that was the one that I read some articles last week, and there's probably some criticisms there about that they were sending their perceived B team, and that it's devaluing the league a little bit, but they've so much strength and depth. We know that they're kind of they remind me a bit of Dublin, Leinster. They can bring up people off the bench, make changes, rotate the squad, and they did that Friday night. Again, defence was a bit dodgy, but you just felt at the end they got a late Brian Byrne try to win it.
Their B team at the start of last year, though, had like Dan Levy in it, and had James Ryan in it, and had Jordan Larmour in it. I was like, this B team is no good, and it's like, actually, they're all world class players.
Yeah, and some of the stories that were coming out from the articles were devaluing the league, and look. I think for the Pro 14, it'd be great if all the internationals played every week, but it's just something that has worked really well for us in Ireland here, and probably we're an envy of all the countries that we can rotate the players like that. And they ground out a result again, and again it was probably Cardiff's close to their full strength, and it just goes to show the depth and the strength of that Leinster squad to get a result.
Speaking of rotation and stuff, we were all expecting Joey Carberry to start at number 10. He doesn't start at number 10. JJ Hanlon starts at number 10 for Munster. Munster have an easy win against the Cheetahs, and we'll see how good the Cheetahs are this year. But is that just you're going to have to earn your place here? We're not handing anything to you?
Yeah, well, look, I think to be fair to Johan van Grant, to bring Joey Carberry in and just put him straight in, he has time to change things around and give them all a crack at it, and hopefully it'll bring the best out of JJ Hanlon. He played well on Saturday. He can play centre, full back as well, so he's still an important player for me. And Keatley can play in a couple of different positions, but ultimately Carberry will start unless he plays absolutely horrendous in the next few weeks before Europe. There'll be a bit of mixing and matching before then. He sat on the bench on Saturday as well because he's in Australia. He's in the Australian tour. He didn't start have huge taxation on his body in that tour, so he's probably back a little bit earlier than some of the other internationals, but did an impressive win, 38-0. Darren Sweetenham was superb. The break he made for the first try, I don't know if you've seen it, and he does a little pass out a little flick like that out to Rory Scannell. It was an incredible try, and he looked really electric. Now the thing is probably, it has to be said for the Cheetahs, they're in the Curry Cup at the moment. They have two squads, a squad of 50 players trying to play in Curry Cup on Saturday. They were beaten by the Sharks on Saturday and beaten by Munster in Thomond Park. So it's difficult to manage that.
It's a hard time of the year.
Very, very difficult. It's two squads, one playing in South Africa, one playing in Ireland. And, I think people want the South African teams to be strong. Now the Kings were beaten by Zebra on Friday night as well. So, you want the South Africans to be a bit stronger. It's going to be difficult for them. They had some mitigating factors last year, but I think they need to be stronger this year.
Dragons beaten by Treviso at home.
Yeah, that's a tough one for Bernard Jackman. He's there's a number of changes there, and he'll be more frustrated than anyone, and he's a really good coach, and it's a tough challenge. They're expecting some change there, and. But then again, you're playing against Benetton, who have all their internationals, so we must remember that. But to lose your home games, you want to try and win at home. And then you're up in Ulster, and they ground out a result, badly need a result. Now, you could say they were fortuitous in the end. They held on. John Cooney got a late penalty. But good start for Dan McFarnell to get a win under the belt anyway.
There's concern growing about the injury that Conor Murray has at the moment. It's a neck shoulder injury they're talking about, and there's a possibility he might miss the first 2 rounds of Europe at this point, which would put him in doubt perhaps for the November internationals. And yet this is largely speculation because there's been no official confirmation this is the expected return date.
I think there's been no official confirmation of the exact prognosis of the injury, is because it's one of those ones that it could settle down in a few weeks, or it could take a little bit longer. And I think they're cautious to say, look, he's going to be back in 6 weeks, or he's going to be back in 4, or he's going to be back in 3 months, because I think it's one of those injuries that he's had a bit of a neck problem for a while, and they want to try and sort it out, and hopefully there's confidence that it will settle down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I think it's understandable in a way that there's.
Did you?
They can't really give clarity. Yeah, of course you do.
So this is actually something I think that maybe doesn't get talked about a lot. Most rugby players have neck problems most of the time.
You're going to have stiffness in your shoulders, your neck. You're going to, there's going to be times where you're going to have to get a bit of mobility, massage, all that kind of stuff as the recovery. But I've never had an injection. I've had injection in the shoulders, right, because I damaged both my shoulders on a number of occasions. But he has some specific sort of a neck problem that he's got an anti-inflammatory injection in the neck, and they're hoping it'll settle down. I think it came in that Wales game last year, or the year before.
18 months ago, I think.
18 months ago against Wales over in Cardiff.
It's a long time to have a neck injury like that.
That's the problem, Anthony, with rugby, because it's kind of like, and you often hear when at the end of a season, if someone doesn't go on the summer tour, it's a real chance to maybe get a little bit of a clean out or a little bit of surgery or rehab and get that problem fixed. It's very difficult. If I have a niggle in my shoulder during the season, I might take a week or two out of the game, but then it never really goes away fully.
You're just managing that.
You're managing through it, and that happens a lot in rugby, and that's kind of the price you pay, and that's fine too. I never had you'd love to have a 6-week block that you could take out, but players don't want that because they lose ground.
Is it an injury though that could get worse, Alan? Like, I mean, if the prognosis comes, like obviously the neck, you don't want to mess around with that.
Yeah. Well, look, I think they're obviously not going to operate on it, so I think they're confident that there's some bit of inflammation or something going on there. That this is kind of speculation. If I think it was more serious, because I think he's a priority for Ireland. I think they take him out now, do an operation, and have him right for
the World Cup,
next year World Cup and all that kind of stuff. He's the one player he's played the most since the last World Cup.
Right.
He started the most games for Ireland, so he's a phenomenal player, and he's very durable and robust. You don't rarely kind of see him injured, and he loves that physicality as well. So I think, look, it's important that they get this right, and that's why Munster were allowed to sign Albie Matheson. I think a few eyebrows raised about another overseas player coming in, but suddenly they lose a couple of games in Europe and they make it difficult for themselves. So it's a short-term thing. So, and I think they've given that, by signing him, they've given Conor Murray the opportunity to say, if it is 3-4 months,
who cares?
We can take that.
Yeah.
And I think people understand that look, if he's back in 6 weeks, which is a confidence, is what I'm hearing, that he could be back in 4, 5, 6 weeks. So hopefully he gets it sorted out pretty quickly, because he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah. Who's his replacement? Who's his backup?
Who's his replacement for Ireland? I think
that we can be confident.
I think Kieran Marmion is. I think he's the one. If you go right back to the Aviva Stadium again 18 months ago, when he played in that, when we stopped England from winning the Grand Slam, I think Marmion was the one who started that game. For sure, John Cooney has put himself, as a talking point, and he's a really good season, a tough year last year for Ulster, and Luke McGrath, I think, was superb in Leinster winning last year. He was very disappointed not to be in Australia. So I think, are they at the same level? Their ability to pass, to kick and be very competent at scrum halves is no doubt. They're very talented players. It's very hard to produce someone like Conor Murray. He's like a back row forward.
He's world class.
Because his defence is phenomenal. He's so physical. He tackles props.
But when you look at what they've done to make sure that there is a backup to Johnny Sexton, he's getting game time in Europe with the manoeuvring of Joey Carby into Munster, are we doing the same as a backup at the moment?
Joey Carby's a backup to Sexton. How many games has he started at 10 for Ireland? There's not a lot of opportunities to play them, give them 3 or 4 games on the trot or whatever. It just doesn't happen at international level. You just hope that...
There might be now in November, though. This is a chance for somebody to actually say,
maybe,
I am
Well, look, you would
Murray.
think that for Italy, certainly, that would be an opportunity. And USA, I think New Zealand and Argentina in the middle are the two that it'll be going full strength. But if Murray is out for November,
that's what I'm saying.
Does Marmion start Cooney or Luke McGrath? I think Marmion is probably the next one who'll get the crack, and if he takes it, then. But to be fair to Cooney, he was very good last year, and Luke McGrath very consistent and impressive for Leinster. So you can't just get like for like with Conor Murray.
No.
You won't produce someone like him. It's very hard to.
You just want some comfort level that, like, if Conor Murray is unavailable for our World Cup quarter-final, that we have somebody who's going to step in and go, I have some experience of what this is actually like.
Well, I think Marmion is the one who probably has that with that win against England. I think you know, the other players have come off the bench on occasions and stuff, but you just can't get that perfect scenario where you have plenty of experience for them in such a pivotal position. And most of the Ireland games in the last kind of number of years have been big games where you want to, you know, you want your big players like, you know, playing and starting.
Yeah, all right, Alan, good stuff. I don't mind winter being back if the rugby's going to be good.
Oh, absolutely.
GA season is over. It's mad.
NFL season's coming up.
Yeah, we've got a draft tonight. Right, Cora Staunton joined us at our OTB roadshow last week at Croke Park. She dropped a bit of a bombshell saying that she thinks that she may have played her last game for the Mayo footballers. Here she is on playing underage football.
And how would 12-year-old boys take to Cora Staunton scoring 1-7 on them?
Yeah, at the start they all wanted to mark you. I'd say after 15 minutes no one really wanted to mark you.
It's not a good look for a 12-year-old boy to have that happen.
No, it's so... Yeah, no, I was lucky. Like, I was lucky. I played with the likes of Alan Dillon and Gary Dillon, his brother. And, you know, all the lads at the time, they were very good. You know, they protected you and looked after you. You know, you'd obviously get the odd belt here and there, you know, when a goal or two went in, but they always looked after you. But, like, going back to, like, your talent, I knew I was talented, but I think it came to a stage maybe where I was 14 or 15, and I was going through a really rough part of my life at the time. My mother had got sick and would have died when I was 16. And, you know, I started to maybe go down the wrong path and started to put on weight and just had no interest in football. Until a couple of people kind of put me back into the right path and dragged me back into football. And then I had to work really hard because I was getting that bit older, maybe had a bit of weight on, and, you know, wasn't the person, you know, the star that I would have been growing up and things were easy. And then from them few years that we done very well with Mayo from 17 till I was about 21, 22. We won 4 All-Irelands, we were in another one and lost. By a point to Laois. I had to work really, really hard, and I think them 5 years were the basis of me wanting to make myself better. We had an absolutely unbelievable manager at the time,
Finbar Egan,
that made me want to be the footballer I was, and probably made me, you know, the sports person I am today. That's been very driven, and you know, as was said earlier, we talk about, you know, competing, and, you know, it's all about, you know, once everyone's happy and enjoying it. I suppose I come from a club, I come from a culture where we love winning, and we've been doing it all our lives. And I suppose you know, even now, I've been playing so long and being 36 years of age, I still want to make myself better, whether it's for Carnacon, whether it's for the Giants in Sydney, or whatever sport I am. You know, I want to be the best I can be.
It's Cora Staunton Speaking with Joe during the week. You can get that whole thing available for download on all of our podcast streams, and we streamed it live again on Saturday evening, so it's up on youtube.com/ Off the Ball as well if you want to see the whole thing. I should remind you, of course, that OTBAM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. We're here every morning in association with Screwfix.ie. Let's talk a bit about Jim Gavin, because you know, the achievements, I do see Darren's point that they don't get a lot of credit because there is this other conversation that has to be had about the resources, the playing population and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, the quality of football that they're producing is mesmeric, and that comes from the culture, and the culture comes from the manager. And he has definitely, like, you know, talking to various people, they say that, you know, he gives you advice. He doesn't. He gives you, you know, he tells you 2 things, and if you do them, great, and if you don't do them,
not so great.
Well, you didn't do it, and so off you go.
Yeah.
But I informed you what I wanted from this setup. You were given fair opportunity to do it. We gave you the support system around it. It's up to you to achieve these things, and that there's no screaming and shouting, that there's no kind of, you know, there's none of that kind of stereotypical management speak that you see. There's no banging hurls on tables. There's nothing. It's just like, we're all mature adults here. We're trying to collectively achieve the same thing, and yet the football is beautiful at times.
I think it's, you know, you kind of go back to the Peter Caffrey days, or, you know, even Tommy Lyons, and you look at, quite often a team will mirror the coach. You know, I suppose that's always the way, you know, it can happen. It doesn't always necessarily have to happen, but quite often it does happen. And, you know, Gilroy was instrumental in changing that kind of element, of that swashbuckling kind of element, and it's, you know, it's kind of highs and lows of that Dublin kind of setup in the 2000s to a more rigorous and a kind of not only a potent outfit but a more resilient outfit, an outfit that wouldn't just crack under pressure, because, you know, there was lots of examples where they did over the years, and like, I mean, not much like Sen and Connell even just admitting to it, you know, there was times where they look back and go, but there was moments in those games where, such as like the Mannion thing that we spoke about, where that didn't happen. Someone just didn't put the shoulder to the wheel. They saw themselves as a forward, not as a corner back and a forward. And that's what, again, when I go down to those small elements, that's what Gavin has probably instilled. As much as like Cody would have instilled with Kilkenny, it's those things of, well, listen, this is what we'd like you to do. Your job is this, and you've done great, and you've got on the panel because you're an unbelievable forward, but this is also what is expected of you. It's not, you know, as you say, banging the table. It's like, this is it. And if you do those things, well, then you have a fair chance of winning All-Irelands and staying on the team. It's a lot easier to give that message and to reinforce that message, obviously, when you're winning, because the person receiving that message goes, well, he must be right because I am winning all these things. Where discontent and disharmony comes in is when you're giving that message but you're not winning. Someone then starts to question, well, actually his message is wrong. Or people outside start to question, his message is wrong. The message might be absolutely correct, you just mightn't have the talent pool that's there, or there could be other elements going against you. So he's coming from a position of strength, but at the same time to keep those players, and like, I mean, from the outside in, you may make assumptions about certain players in there, but we don't know the players that are in there. You know, people might have thought that Connolly is a bit of the only kind of enigma. There might be plenty of other fellas in there who are, shall we say, you know, kind of out there on their own, or a little bit of an outlier. But yet he keeps them all very much in-house. He keeps them all very, very focused. He keeps them all very humble. You heard Philly McMahon saying there's no egos. And to be fair, he has managed to, you know, get rid of that. Like, I mean, the big thing with Gilroy was the click. There was a click there that certainly was there for a number of years, and Gilroy got rid of the click. That click were very powerful in the direction of that Dublin team, who would play, what the style of play they would do, talking around. You can imagine that it's very, yes, there's leaders within the group, and I'd say he empowers those leaders, but at the same time, when he speaks or something has to be outlaid from the backroom team, they all listen and don't question it.
Yeah. And the transformation in the team has been so spectacular, like just the turnover of players from that first team to the team that took the field yesterday. We've got a couple of photographs from the 95 one of Jim Gavin on his knees celebrating. It's quite a famous photograph at this stage, obviously, because of what he goes on to become. You know, he was a really good player, like not a great player, but he is undoubtedly one of the greatest managers in Gaelic football history now as a result of what's happened. And here's a kind of calmer, smiling and shaking hands yesterday, but definitely was emotional yesterday in a way that a couple of the other All-Ireland final victories haven't been so emotional. There was kind of a sense of relief. I think there was definitely this year, it was like, look, we've done it with this team, we've done, Dermot Connolly isn't part of it. There was pressure on us because of that. There was pressure on us because of other various outside factors that, you know, you can't control.
Well, you mean, sometimes it's like, I mean, to go back to, we're just like messing with Darren there, but let's just flip it for a second. Let's say they lost yesterday. Like, let's say just Tyrone causing pressure, and let's say they just got Tyrone nicked it. The whole question would be Connolly and his dealing with that, and stories would come out on that. You know, people would say that inevitably their best player, you know, from a forward, was sitting in the States, you know, playing in a
championship. Kicking 12 points from play last Sunday.
Yeah, so why wasn't it done? What was done, you know, to get him? But the first question would be, why didn't you do more to get Dermot Connolly back into the team? So there was pressure on him, you know, like, I mean, and I think it's, you know, it's probably a miss of people to say, you know, that, you know, he's the head of this juggernaut, and he has everything behind him. At the same time, he has the same pressures that other managers do. He'll have the same pressures even with dealing with the likes of Bernard Brogan yesterday, being outside the panel, you know, to do that to a guy who's given you so much. And
who like bust his balls to get back this year from a cruciate, like
correct.
in 5 months, you
see
know.
the effort that he's done, all those different things, the history of the Brogan family, all those different things, the pressures that would come on, should we pick him or not. Even some guys like Paddy Andrews.
It would have been really easy to stick Bernard Brogan on the bench yesterday. A really easy thing to do is just like, yeah, no problems. Look at all the other forwards that we have the opportunity to. You're on the bench, you made the bench, that's a great story. But actually, much bigger story is, no, these guys actually deserve their place and have to be true to the boundaries that I've set down. And
if that's your boundary, if that's your mantra, right, you know, so if my mantra is, listen, Jerry, you've gone really well, you get the jersey, but then you start to mess up. If I do not hold fast to that, if I decide to sway a little bit and say, well, actually, okay, you're not going great, or, you know, Mr. X is giving you skinning there in the thing, or, you know, you've been caught, you were out drinking or something, you know, you just stepped outside the lines. If I then decide that actually that's okay, well, then your boundaries have gone. And everyone in the panel will take a sniff of that and they'll go, actually, he's not really holding to it. And it would be like a cancer within the squad. If he has set the boundary, he has to stick to that all the way. And that's why Bernard, for example, didn't get on yesterday.
Here he is talking with Maura Tracy yesterday evening. Have a look.
From that, Jim, Gavin, Cuchordachus, I want to hear now how you feel, not about the process, not about the team, not about the feeling of Dublin. How do you feel this evening?
Firstly, going to be in the Margaret. Thanks for that. And we're just personally, I'm just delighted. You know, I'm just thrilled for the players. Thrilled for the players, and just thrilled for the fans, and that's why we do what we do as a management team. We're in a very privileged position to be asked to manage an inter-county team. We're obviously very proud Dubs. We're all born and bred in Dublin, and we're just thrilled to see the boys representing the Dublin County in the sky blue jerseys, and then when they get a bit of tin and a bit of success at the end of it, it even makes it more special. So I'm just so happy for them. I'm just so happy for all of our families and friends and supporters, and I'm just really looking forward to a great night.
I'd say you're happy for yourself as well, though.
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, this is all a personal satisfaction. You commit so much time to it, but again, it's all volunteer time. You know, we all have professional lives outside of sport, and from management to players, there's no financial gains in this. You know, I was up under 10s yesterday morning, Saturday morning, and you see all the kids coming along with the mums and dads, and then you see the likes of Alan Brogan, you know, fantastic stalwart for Dublin football for many years, bringing his son along and being involved in the coach, and Ray Cosgrave as well. And you go, that's the uniqueness of a sport that we play and that we're part of. The GAA, the Gaelic Athletic Association, is a community volunteer-based sport, and it's great. There's a fantastic crowd here today. But the players and the management teams and the background teams, we're all volunteering our time, and that's you know, you're just happy that the time that you put in it's been worthwhile.
It's funny when you're there, kind of getting a little bit confused thinking about that under 10s game. I'd imagine an All-Ireland final weekend, time probably goes really quickly, but also really slowly as you're trying to tie up all the loose ends.
It does. Well, at least the senior players listen to me. Under 10s can be a bit more challenging, but it's great to see them. And at that age, they just want to go out and play and have fun and take scores and it's just great. It's a real leveller.
Yeah, so let's head back over to the Gibson, and Stephen Doyle is there. Stephen, a quiet morning there. It turns out that the team let loose last night and they're celebrating wildly.
Yeah, they certainly are. I have to say, Ger, because I've been here every morning after the All-Ireland final wins, and you'll generally get about 5 or 6 players coming through before this time of the morning, but from what I've heard, there's a fair few of them gone down to a very well-known establishments that they like to have a few beverages in at this hour of the morning. So it just seems, and I think more so the older guys like Paul Flynn, Paddy Andrews, these kind of fellas definitely seem to be letting the hair down a bit more so this year than they have in previous years.
Stephen, what's your instinct, knowing them as well as you do, in terms of coming back for next season? Do you expect that there will be some retirements, some enforced retirements, that Jim will actually try and freshen it up? Because, you know, we've seen before that 5 in a row is almost impossible to do in this sport.
Yeah.
Particularly just the level of competition, but also because fatigue sets in.
Yeah, definitely. But I'd have to say, look at Bernard Brogan this year, and look how you know, how desperate he was to get back after that cruciate injury. Like, it would have been so easy for him to pack it up. And I saw him outside yesterday warming up on the pitch with wearing the number 27 shirts. He was the next man up in case somebody got injured in the warm-up, still determined. And I really think that the likes of Michael Darragh MacAuley, Paul Flynn, Kevin McManaman, these kind of guys, they want to be around. And I'd say Jim Gavin will want them around as well, because these fellas can still set a really good example to some of the younger fellas coming through, like the likes of Owen Merchant and Brian Howard, these guys that we've seen this year. So I have to say, even looking at Michael Darragh MacAuley, and I know he got a laugh at my question about asking him would he be around next year and was he hoping to impress with Ballyboden and St. Enda's. Like, these guys are winners, they're serial winners, and I think if there's a chance of getting another All-Ireland title next year, they want to be around for that.
Yeah, there's a pretty good chance of it as well. Look, we'll let you go and try and rouse some of them out of their beds, and we'll see that good stuff from you a little bit later on. Thanks a million, Stephen.
Thanks, Chair.
It's Stephen Doyle from the Gibson Hotel there this morning. Check out offtheball.com and our various social feeds for it. I mean, I don't begrudge any of them having a good night or actually.
I feel sorry for poor old Philly. I'd say he's literally every single camera and every single journalist are like, okay, I'll go again at it.
Yeah.
You know? I'd say he actually feels like having a drink.
It's a bit harsh. So we'll stick the stats up from yesterday. So the interesting stuff here was the kickouts. I thought kickouts, Dublin at 31, Tyrone at 24, own kickouts won 29. There were two that went awry. They went over the sideline. One of them went over John Small's head. I can't remember the second one. I think it was the opposite side of the pitch, so over the Cusick stand in the first half.
Yeah. I remember it actually. Yeah, I think I can't remember. They Tyrone did turn them over on a number of occasions where they won it, where they won the free or they won the kick up, but they did turn them over well. Tyrone didn't do too badly on their own. Like 18 out of 24 is probably as good. I'd actually like to see everyone else this year, but that's pretty decent. The problem was Morgan hit that really bad one. It was a bit of a miss kick. Remember the one just before the penalty? He went straight down the middle. I think he was trying to find someone down the middle and he just miskicked it. I think it went straight to O'Callaghan.
It's funny because that obviously sets the whole team back and makes them really terrified about what's going to happen. But they actually scored after that. Like, they stopped the rot really quickly. They didn't fold their tent. And it's funny too because Dean Rock was saying that he missed the few early frees and that kind of. That affected the team as well in the aftermath, and you could see that. So they are human, you know. You just need
the massive stat for me.
You needed Mayo there yesterday, basically.
6 wides is a massive stat. You know that is that they just don't kick wides.
Yeah.
I mean that is 16 wides for Tyrone. You half that. And again it goes down to people can say, oh well, 6 wides, did they have much of the ball? Of course they did, but again it's where they take their shots from, who takes the shots. You talked about, I heard McCaffrey, I think it was Marriage, who was actually interviewing him a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, my ability is taking fellas on, my speed, and he said, my thing is probably not shooting, and he's kind of made a bit of a laugh and joke about it, and he said other guys, their thing is, so straight away, they're constantly just playing to their strengths.
Yeah.
But it goes back, listen, you're an NFL fan, it goes to sport. It's only inevitable that GAA and Gaelic football, like the old days of literally, I remember some teams, Jesus, when you think back to being one-on-one against fellas or having no support in the defence, having no fellas even tracking back, just catch it and kick it, this kind of stuff. You think Jesus, what were we at?
Yeah.
And now you can actually say, no, you're really good at this, and what we're going to do is we're going to make you do those things
again and again.
Yeah. And you're not so good at the other thing, so why not? Probably tell you what, we probably won't let you do that if that's okay. Yeah. But the unfortunate thing for it, still a lot of GAA players think, oh no, but I can do that as well. But Gavin is completely out of. You do not see 2, 3, 4, bar Philly maybe, but you don't see fellas coming up and taking pot shots. Even Philly came up yesterday and hit it on his left, a terrible shot. It got blocked down, and just
he had a bad one in the first half as well, kind of ballooned wide.
Yeah, and he's probably the only one who can do that. But mostly I'd say 90% of the time, it's the fellas that you want taking the shots who take the shots.
Yeah, it's funny because in his piece, Mickey Hart actually said that, we've worked really hard on getting the right person to be the person taking the shot, except yesterday in the big game that got away from the players a bit, and you could kind of see that. So maybe they're the new Mayo team, and they're the ones who are actually going to challenge them over the next couple of years, where they get that decision making a bit better. But
why have Kerry been so good over the years? The right fellas take the shots at the right time. You know, more than likely.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, that is it. You know, it's the go-to guys who inevitably are shooting.
Yeah.
And
somebody kicked the ball over the bar, One final